Welcome to another episode of Open Up the Workforce, where we talk with executives advancing inclusion, diversity, and equity for the future of work. I'm Ava Sadeghi, the co-founder and CEO of Symba, and your host today. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome President and CEO of INROADS, Forrest Harper. Forrest is a pioneer in the industry with over 33 years of experience advancing D&I in the workplace. We're proud to work with INROADS as a partner and customer and share Forrest's story with everyone today. Mr. Harper, prior to INROADS, you've spent 28 years at Pfizer, starting off as a sales rep and then working your way into VP positions and other leadership roles. You're now leading incredible work at INROADS. Would you tell our listeners more about yourself and your career story?
Well, thank you very much, and I'm very excited to be with you, Ava. We've been working together side by side for the last 3 years, doing some impactful work on marginalized students and just talented individuals. So thank you for the opportunity. I have to start with my humble beginnings, because that will help you understand where I got to and how far I got. I grew up in a single parent home in public housing as a migrant worker family, picking fruits and vegetables like farmers down in South Florida. And when I got an opportunity to know that I was going to go to college, I didn't want to waste it. But I had to do a pivot. I was an athlete, a student athlete that had scholarships, but in my last game of the season, I really just bummed my knee out. So I had to have a plan B. And I knew that I wanted to do some things that could impact my community. So when I got to college, I decided to take an opportunity to serve our nation. And that was exciting because I wanted to be able to contribute. And that's when I saw some of my leadership traits started to come out. I had plenty of mentors. I had folks in the law enforcement, folks in leadership positions, and folks in teaching. And when I got a chance to go to the military, it made it that I was a team player, pick up that skill, made it that I would have to lead by example, all the traits that you're hearing about leadership, to include how the work really gets done by the people. And that if you're human-centric and you treat people right, they will follow you anywhere. And so I learned all that through the military and understanding the discipline of getting the job done. When I got to corporate America, it was relatively easy to understand the importance of leading by example and respecting others and what they brought to the table. So those humble beginnings got me an opportunity. And I describe my corporate career very much so like if you really want to achieve something and become an opportunity, being an African American in my role, and I had 8 different promotions where I was the first and only African American to be an executive in corporate America at Pfizer. And that was a lot. But I remembered something when a mentor told me. There's nothing about you can be about being the first, but there's always something you can do about being the only. So I am always on that journey of what do I need to do more about not being the only. I want to produce more.
Wow, that was so powerful. Forrest, thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you so much for your service. You have such a powerful story of everything coming together. And I love this notion of making sure that there are no more onlys. And so I'd love to double down on that and understand, what do you see as the biggest barriers for talent to access the workforce?
Well, we still are dealing with systemic bias, systemic racism that we all must understand that it exists, no matter the cause, but it still exists. People have pedigree biases. Oh, you went to an Ivy League school, so you can't come and do the work because you went to a state college or a community college. That's not true. We also have to knock down barriers that, we've never had a woman in this position before, so it's going to be kind of different. Well, that's not true. I remember very vividly the first time I gave a promotion to a woman who was just super talented and a phenomenal leader. No one knew she was 7 months pregnant. And we didn't, in those days, you didn't send pictures around. There was no Google. There was no, you couldn't send a picture around in snail mail. So basically, once I promoted her, she came to my first meeting, people stared at her for at least a good 20 minutes. And then I was the first one to also introduce bridging back to work, meaning after you became a mom as a woman, we took some time and asked you, when do you want to come back to work? So to me, there are too many biases, too many still systemic biases. And the way we have to get through them, we have to be disruptive. We have to be disruptive and true to what we believe is right. And when we see it, call it out. And when we see it, bring constructive solutions that will never see these biases and systemic racism or systemic biases, no matter who it affects at any one point in time.
I couldn't agree more with you, Forrest. And as you know, at Symba, we began as a social impact project with late Congressman John Lewis. And I always say, you know, I'm on the quest for good trouble. And that's really all we're about, is about disruption and about bringing some of these innovative solutions. And that's why we've been so fortunate to work with you, because you really elevate diverse entrepreneurs. And would love to get your perspective on innovative solutions and how you've seen these addressing certain challenges in the space.
Well, you know, that's a great question. There were times when corporations and institutions and governments brought people on board because they figured that they brought the best people on board that could figure out a problem or create innovation within their walls. But after time, there were times when they figured that, boy, we're not getting this done. There's not enough innovation going on. There's not enough discovery going on. Imagine this: if the discoverers and the innovators were not allowed to be entrepreneurs. George Washington Carver and the discovery of the innovation through science of the many uses of what? Vegetables and peanuts. Imagine if he had not been given a lift. Imagine if Charles Drew had not been an innovator and an entrepreneur in the discovery of plasma. Imagine where we would be. So the universe needs to be full of entrepreneurs who are discovery by just instinct, who are innovative, who take risk, calculated risk, but they are the builders of what we see today massively. And then last but not least, I think we need to drive and flourish to the young, talented individuals the opportunity to be entrepreneurs. We can always work together in a corporate environment or a setting, but entrepreneurs need to have exploratory opportunities where they fail, they succeed, they may fail again, but they succeed. But once you give them that opportunity, they really thrive and become solutions to what we do today. And a reminder, our country is built off of small businesses, and small businesses are the engine to our economy. Imagine a large amount of those are entrepreneurs, just like 38% of INROADS alum are entrepreneurs.
That's amazing. I didn't know that 38% were, but that makes a lot of sense. I remember during one of our first onboardings, one of the students raised their hand during the Q&A. We thought they were going to ask questions about the product, and they had asked about our startup journey and what led us to building Symba. And that really was such an inspiring moment as founders on that call. So I can definitely see that very clearly.
I agree. I mean, we have people who've discovered things along the way that are so well known now, like Black Girls Code was started by an entrepreneur, Kimberly Bryant. She came through our ranks and as a high school student. And so we thrive on innovation, and it comes from our entrepreneurs.
This is a perfect segue into just setting some light around what INROADS actually does and the incredible impact that your organization is having since 1970. So I'd love to have you share a little bit more about that for us.
Well, our founder was an innovator. Our founder was an entrepreneur. Here's a gentleman who stepped off the campus of Princeton University in 1944. He decided to serve his country. When he came back, he was in advertising, working for a world-class company in corporate America. But he saw some things not right that were injustices in the communities of Black and brown students in all communities, particularly in the urban settings, in the barrios and the ghettos. But he wanted to do something about it, and he wanted to do it as an entrepreneur. So we heard Martin Luther King speak on the Great March on Washington, and it stimulated that he too could be an innovator and an entrepreneur on social justice. Imagine that, right? So when he quit his job, he built a vision that if he could train young, talented Black and brown students to develop their leadership skills, to develop their skills and their developmental areas that they could go and prosper in, they could actually close the racial wealth gap in America. And he built it. Now, some 52 years later, touching 154,000 lives, I stand at the privilege of seeing this entrepreneur dream come true, who was impacted by a Nobel Prize winner in Martin Luther King Jr. And so we strive to set a path and give a career pathway for students who may want to go into corporate America, who may want to own their own business, or who may want to go into the legislature or politics or whatever it might be. But the dreams and the journeys are never, never limited to just one area. So that's the journey of INROADS, and we transform lives every single day. And along the way, we impact those who also we give back to. And so we thrive on helping our students understand the power of giving. Our mantra comes from what we believe in, and as to much as whom is given, much is expected. And every student, believe, and every alumni thrives in that.
That's incredible, because you've built such a powerful community. And I think about myself as, a diverse woman founder, and I've been empowered and supported by those who, look like me, who are women and are very excited about lifting others up. So I do believe, and that comes back to that concept of the only, making sure we eliminate that and making sure we're creating space for more. I know that you had shared with us that prior to Pfizer, you were part of the U.S. military and the Army, and we'd love to get your perspective on also how maybe employers might be supportive of veteran talent re-entering the civilian workforce and other types as well.
Well, first of all, it takes a special person in a society where you're not forced to be a part of the military to volunteer. Volunteering to put your life on the line for causes and things that you have nothing to do with, but for the freedom to volunteer for those nations that need help, or right here in our own country that need help, it takes a lot. So what I learned in the military was the ability to be able to not only thrive to help out those in a very disciplined way, in a way that I could show my leadership skills, and in a way that I can work in a team where there's one cause, one cure, and one real commitment in order to do right in protecting the freedoms of others. And when you do that, it's very difficult to be able to fail when you do it in those things. And so the military taught me a long way of being able to put in the hard work, the work ethic, not only that, to work around a team of people you don't even know. Somebody could be from South Dakota or somebody can be from South Florida, but you're working with people in a way to get things done in the military. And I think that we need that skill set in our young people today. Somehow through Job Corps, somehow through volunteering, it builds discipline. And so I encourage corporations to look at building your workforces with talented, really veterans who really care. They have the discipline. They understand the mission. They understand what it means to get the job done. And they're so reliable. Rarely you say, boy, I wonder if they got that done. You turn around and, wow, they got it done. And that's because they're so committed. So I encourage employers to build out your workforce with veterans and people who have come out wanting to do something in your company.
Thank you for sharing, Forrest. And there was a recent article that came out that you commented on, and I thought it was really, really powerful about how corporate America is still on the right track. And I really admire the work that you've done in a lot of ways to bring people together, understand that we still have work left ahead of us, but work is still being done and people are making positive strides. Can you shed some light on, where are we at and what do you think is on the horizon for diversity, equity, inclusion?
Well, I think, first of all, we have a new breed of CEOs of corporate America. And you could tell when first, a few years prior to the unfortunate death of George Floyd, Tim Ryan at PwC led a real collaboration among CEOs to come together and sign an agreement to work together on the CEO in Action. And CEO in Action was a commitment by CEOs to focus in on unconscious bias and focus on an environment where inclusion was a strength and not a weakness. That's the part of that new breed of CEOs who put their P&Ls down and picked up their attitudes about what they wanted to do about inclusion in the workplace. And then once our nation cried out that there was injustices going on in our communities and the walls were crying with things that we needed to do better through the eyes and the voice of George Floyd, corporate America came together again. This new breed of CEOs said, we need to do something, and they made 3 to 5 year commitments financially and socially to making America focus on what we could do together to do the work of trying to make sure we neutralize those gaps and make sure that we close those gaps socially, racially, wealth-wise, and make sure opportunities are there for everyone. So I say that the COVID process, unfortunately, the pandemic slowed down a lot of the activation of those commitments, but now they're back up and running. So let's give credit to those CEOs, that new breed of CEOs today, who not only took those commitments from the tears to the streets. And I say they've got a lot of work to do, but they're committed. And we're watching it and we see it all the time.
At Symba, we're happy to hear that because we need that new breed of CEO. And we need more diversity in the boardroom altogether. And at Symba, our whole mission is #OpenUpTheWorkforce. And what that means to us is a future of work that supports equitable access to jobs and wealth creation. And so to wrap up today, Forrest, would love to get your perspective and understanding of what do you believe are the next steps talent leaders need to take on in order to fully open up the workforce for our future?
Well, I first would just say congratulations for taking on the challenge to those talent leaders. It is not easy. We're still operating in a society of norms. And it's the norms, people call them culture, but I call them norms. If you're not willing to disrupt the norms of the way you're trying to bring diversity and inclusion in your hiring, your staffing, you're gonna stand still for a long, long time. You won't progress. Secondly, I really fundamentally believe we've got to be disruptive to those norms over and over again so that we can bring in the new thoughts. And how do we do that? By opening up our walls of corporate America and inviting in entrepreneurs like Symba to help you understand that it's important. Bring fresh ideas from the outside and then assemble your staff, your employees, your human-centric, loving employees to help you build the next brightest idea on how you can diversify your workforce. And then last but not least, ignore the criticism. Be vocal, but make sure that there's actions that match your commitment. Like when JP Morgan Chase made a commitment to hire 4,000 Blacks long before all of what you see today. And they came through with that commitment with their advancing Black pathways and their commitment to it. And so you've got to be so bold as to be disruptive positively but take that action further. And then last but not least, don't be afraid to hire and invest that talent that's in development. If we didn't have a pipeline, where would we be? Look at West Point. They got a pipeline. Look at an NFL team. They got a pipeline. Look at every part of society. They have a pipeline. So let's make that pipeline full of diverse talent, full of talent of women that can help us be more diverse in our challenges going forward.
Wow, Forrest, what a powerful note to wrap up our interview today. I'm feeling incredibly inspired and couldn't agree more about creating more pipelines of diverse talent. Thank you so much for the impact and the work that you and your team at INROADS are doing to transform the lives of thousands. We're very fortunate that we get to play a very small role in supporting your efforts. We appreciate your time and support. Thank you so much, Forrest, for being with us.
Thank you, and go Symba.
Thank you.